Hi, welcome to our home bar and welcome to our YouTube channel, Wise Whiskey. I'm Tony, and on today's video, we're going to go over how to read a whiskey label. It can be really overwhelming and daunting to go into a liquor store or grocery store and see all the different packages on a shelf. Hopefully, we can give you a little bit of information so that you feel more comfortable finding whiskeys you like and then finding other whiskeys in similar categories or similar styles. So to start, we want to talk about the fact that some terms are legal definitions and some are marketing terms. So let's talk about a couple of the legal definitions first. What is a bourbon? What is a rye? To be a straight bourbon, a straight rye, or a straight wheat whiskey, in America, the rules are the same. Those whiskeys have to be aged a minimum of 2 years in new oak barrels. Bourbon has to be at least 51% corn. Rye whiskeys have to be at least 51% rye, and a wheated whiskey has to be at least 51% wheat. Outside of that, you can play with the mash bill. The main ingredient is what matters. When we say new oak, we mean new charred oak barrels. You cannot take a used whiskey barrel or a used wine barrel and use that as the main aging barrel for a straight bourbon or straight rye. They have to be aged for a minimum of 2 years in the new charred oak barrels first. We'll get into what they can do after that here later with an example. Now, some of the marketing terms. Small batch is a really big one. Small batch is not a legally defined term. It just means that when they're batching that whiskey together, they're not doing it in a big as batch as they do with some of their others. Similar to handmade or things like that. It's a marketing term to make it sound better. Typically, small batch whiskeys are better quality and are made in less giant batches than the biggest mainstream ones. But it does not mean that there's a strict code. It's not like a certification. It's nothing like that. It's a marketing term. Once you understand what a straight bourbon or rye is, there's a lot of other terms you might see too. So let's go over a few of those. Bottled and bond is one of the most prominent that you might see. Now, bottled and bond is a legally defined term. The first Food Safety Act passed in the United States was the Bottled and Bond Act. It was passed because rectifiers were making dangerous, sometimes even deadly mixes, calling it whiskey and selling it. Distillers wanted to have a way to let consumers know they were getting safe, quality product from reputable sources. The Bottled and Bond Act allowed that to happen by doing a couple things. It set standards that had to be met, and it included government oversight. A bottled and bond whiskey has been aged in a warehouse bonded with the federal government. Those government agents had access to and managed the inventory in the warehouse. To be a bottled and bond whiskey, it had to be aged a minimum of 4 years, and it had to be bottled at 100 proof. It would also be sealed with the tax stamp showing the government approval for the process. There are certain craft and higher end bottled and bond whiskeys. This is Henry McKenna 10-year. But in general, bottled and bond whiskeys typically mean you can get a really great value. A bottom shelf Jim Beam or Evan Williams is an 80 proof whiskey that's typically around 2 years. An Evan Williams or Jim Beam bonded bottle won't be that much more, typically $1 or $2 more, but you know it's at least 4 years and you know it's aged at 100 proof. Rittenhouse Rye, Old Overholt Rye, Early Times Bottled and Bond, Old Grandad Bottled and Bond. These are all great value bourbons and ryes that let you get some more age and some more proof without breaking the bank. One of the next things you'll see often on labels that can be a step up is cask strength, full proof, barrel proof, or with this unique bottle from Holiday, Rickhouse proof. If we go back to making batches of whiskey, whether it's a large batch or a small batch, you're going to take multiple barrels, you're going to dump them together to get consistent, rounded flavor profile. Then, depending on the proof you want, you're going to add water to that to lower the alcohol level to the proof that you desire. With cask strength or barrel proof bottles, you're not adding any water. Whether it's a single barrel, which we'll talk about in a minute, or whether it's a batch of barrel proof or rickhouse proof like this one, there's no water being added. The proof of the whiskey coming out of the barrel is what ends up in the bottle. As whiskey ages, water evaporates out. This concentrates the flavor and raises the alcohol level. Part of the reason that these bottles are more expensive, there's less of them since you're not adding water to cut the alcohol level down, meaning that it's not going to go as far and make as many bottles. It's more concentrated, so it's going to have more complex and intricate flavors. And also, as that water evaporates out over time, older whiskeys leave less in the barrel. So barrels of this are going to be less than younger whiskey. And then on top of that, you're not adding water to cut it down. So it's more expensive to make these bottles. If you want full flavored, complex, mature whiskey, cask strength and barrel proof whiskeys are a great way to do that. However, if you don't acclimate your palate and work your way up, a lot of times these are just going to taste hot and intense. If you're interested in trying cask strength or barrel proof whiskeys, I recommend a couple options. One would be Benchmark Full Proof. The Benchmark series is made by Buffalo Trace. Some of the same barrels you're going to get other great brands Buffalo Trace. They're just picked a little sooner and taken out a little younger, so they come at a cheaper price point. It's a great way to experiment with whiskey at a higher proof point without breaking the bank. The same goes for Old Grandad 114. I also recommend Holiday or Maker's Mark cask strength whiskeys. Because they're wheated whiskeys, you're going to get a little bit softer profile even at that higher proof point. Another category of barrels you'll see a lot is single barrel. The first single barrel whiskey was Blanton's. It was created by Elmer T. Lee, the then master distiller at Buffalo Trace. And the idea was, what if I cherry pick the best barrels and I bottle those individual barrels without batching them out and mixing them together? So with Michter's Rye, all of the Michter's Rye bottles are single barrels. They're going to pick the barrels they like, that they think represents exactly what they want, and they're going to bottle those individual barrels together. Most single barrels, like this one, will tell you what barrel you're having. So this bottle is Michter's barrel number 25E, looks like 1702. Typically going to get 200 bottles or less from a barrel, depending on the age, depending on the proof and what they're doing with it. But each batch can be different from the next. You might pick a barrel because it is the exact representation of the flavor profile you want, or you might pick a barrel because you think it's really interesting and unique. Single barrels mean variance. They mean variety. They mean uniqueness. If you love a single barrel, unless you find another bottle from that exact same barrel, it is not a guarantee the next time you buy one, it's going to taste the same. If you see a barrel pick is a single barrel, but instead of the distillery team at the distillery picking it, barrel picks are picked by the retailer selling it or by the group you might be a member of. So same rules apply as a single barrel. It's just who happens to be picking that specific barrel. We talked a little bit ago about aging in new oak. This is Barrel Seagrass. It's one of my wife's favorites. It's a rye whiskey. So it was aged for at least 2 years in new charred oak, and it's at least 51% rye. But once they made that, they then decided to take that rye whiskey and let it age for another period of time in a blend of Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels. Now, this label specifically says rye whiskey finished in Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels. They do not have to tell you how long it was finished, but saying that it's a rye whiskey lets you know this was distilled as a straight rye and then for a shorter period sat in those other barrels to give it some unique flavor points. Then we can talk about blending. In America, blended whiskeys will tend to be very cheap bottom shelf brands where they're taking clear spirit, like a rum or a vodka type base, blending it with bourbon or rye to give you a cheaper version so that you can have something that's not called straight bourbon. It's not called straight whiskey anymore because it's been blended with clear spirit. Then you also have brands now on the craftier and more quality side of whiskey in America that are making blends that are completely different than that. This is Redwood Empire Lost Monarch. This is a blend of straight bourbon and straight rye whiskeys. A lot of people are calling these bourbon and rye blends boo ryes, but I don't understand that because bourbon is not pronounced with a boo. So I don't know how you take bourbon and rye and get boo rye. I get bur rye from that. But either way, this is a blend. It is its own style, but you're taking straight bourbon and straight rye and blending them together. If you know enough about bourbon and rye, you should know kind of what to expect from this. On the other side of that is Scotch whiskey. Scotch does a lot of blending. This is Compass Box Nectarosity. It's actually what I'm sipping on today. And Compass Box Nectarosity is a blended Scotch whiskey. That means it's going to be a blend of what they call single malt whiskeys and grain whiskeys. Single malts, like this Port Charlotte 10-year, are going to be made at one distillery or made out of 100% malted barley. Now, you may take different batches and different age whiskeys and blend them together, but they're all 100% malted barley and they're all made on site at the same distillery. A blended Scotch like Compass Box will also take grain whiskey, meaning that it's made with grains other than malted barley. So not only is this a blend of grain and malt whiskeys, this is also a blend of whiskey from different distilleries across Scotland. The nice thing about Compass Box, everything they do is blending. And if you go onto their website or pull up the QR code on the back of your whiskey, they are extremely transparent about the blend makeups that they do. I have never had a whiskey from Compass Box I didn't like. And I think they show that a lot of times blending can kind of have its nose turned up to it, but these guys make incredible stuff. This is another Compass Box. This is Orchard House, and it's a blended malt Scotch. This is still a blend of Scotch from multiple distilleries, but all of the whiskeys that went into this were single malt Scotches. So we're only dealing with whiskey that's 100% malted barley. There's no other grains or other types of whiskey blended into this particular one. So I know that was a lot of information, guys, but these are a lot of the different types and terms that we see on the bottles. And like I said in the beginning, it can be really overwhelming and daunting to go into the store when you don't know what you're looking for. As you try out different whiskeys, pay attention to what type they are, what style, what alcohol level. Try to find the mash bill if you can. All of those things can help point you to another bottle to go find when you find something you really like. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Please, in the comments, let us know if there are other topics you'd like to discuss or if you have any other questions about reading whiskey labels. If there's anything you've seen on a label that confused you or surprised you, please put it in the comments. If you want to support the channel, the best way you can do that is by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Until then, please drink responsibly, please drink respectfully, and most of all, have fun doing it. Thank you and have a great day. Cheers.